Hello and welcome to a new episode of Thursday Night Deck Building. I'm Kaiser and today I'm going to have a look at a new card from the latest virtual expansion Ships of the Line and see whether we can revitalize a deck type from the very early days of Star Trek CCG. The new card is called Cytherian Lure. It's a mission in the Alpha Quadrant with a whopping span of 5. It's worth 30 points, but it has very easy skills, double engineer and double computer skill. Now, the immediate thought, of course, is to pair this mission with Repair Mission, which has very similar skills. We could easily play a deck with assigned mission specialists and then guys that have these skills for a easy 2-mission win. And that's something that would make for a very straightforward deck. Now, of course, this is not what we usually do on this show, so we are trying to bring back a gimmick from the early days of Star Trek CCG. Now, in those days, there was a deck type around called the Cytherian Shuffle. It worked like this. You hit your own self-seeded Cytherians and Barclays Protomorphosis Disease at 1 mission, score 10 points for beating the Barclays, score 15 points for beating the Cytherians using wormhole interrupts, attempt another mission where you have seeded those 2 dilemmas again, do this again, in total 4 times, 25 bonus points from your self-seeded dilemmas, and you are at 100. Now, of course, this no longer works today because in modern format, seeding works differently. You hit your own self-seeded dilemmas after you have worked through your opponent's dilemmas. So you actually have to complete missions or you actually have to beat dilemmas before you can pull this off. And of course, we also have the winning conditions of forcing you to complete 1 space and 1 planet mission if you want to get to 100 points. Or you complete only planet or only space missions, but then you have to get to 140 points. And this is what we want to do in this deck. And that's where we want to abuse the special skill or special game text on this mission here. It reads, Cytherians in this quadrant instead force travel here. So we don't have to take a trip all the way along the space line to cash in the Cytherians points. If we seed our missions ideally, we can simply hit our Cytherians at 1 space mission, fly next door, get those 15 points there, and immediately fly back and complete the mission. Do this twice, and we're looking at a 2-mission win for 140 points from just 2 space missions. Alright, to pull this off, we are using the next generation property logo engine. We have an alternate universe door, we have a Q's tent, we have Continuing Mission, which downloads finest crew in the fleet. We have Attention All Hands. So these are part of our free play engines. Finest crew in the fleet lets us play a personal with USS Enterprise in lore for free. Attention All Hands lets us play a universal personal for free that matches our outpost. And then we have our card play. So we're looking at 3 personal plays per turn. And to make up for the 3 cards we play from hand, we also need to draw 3. 1 is our regular end of turn card draw. 1 is the draw that we usually get from Continuing Mission for playing a personal with 4 skill dot icons or fewer and no special download icon. And our 3rd card draw will come from Process or Mining. To use that, we seed it as Cytherian Lure, seed our outpost next door, and then we have assigned support personnel which helps us get out the geologists we need for Process or Mining. Alright, so ideally we want to have a space line where we have Repair Mission and Explore Dyson Sphere right adjacent to Cytherian Lure. This is of course an ideal scenario. Sometimes you will have 1 mission further away and one of your others next door. It doesn't really matter. You can even get to 140 points from the 2 space missions that are not the optimum. Alright, it's really very straightforward. You play guys, you work through your opponent's dilemmas, and then you will hit your own Cytherians. This will stop the mission attempt. You will cash in the Cytherians points, and now when there are no dilemmas left, or only the Barclays that you know is left, you will fly in with all the mission specialists that you have kept safe so far. You cash in a lot of points, and you're hopefully getting the 2-mission win. The deck is composed of a lot of premier personnel. There's original Picard, Worf, Beverly, and many other faces you will recognize from the very early days of the Star Trek CCG era. There are several holodeck doors, there are a couple of Kivas Farjo collectors, and that's about it. with two exceptions, almost all the personnel play for free, either at finest crew in the fleet or attentional hands. And in our opening hand, we should find either a holodeck door or a personnel with geology. We have about a 90 to 95% chance of this happening. So let's draw 7 cards and see whether we find a geologist or a holodeck door. Look at that, there's a geology. So our first turn looks like this. We want to get a geology personnel into play. Let's play her for free with attentional hands. She triggers a card draw. Then we can play a USS Enterprise personnel for free, so why not use Beverly? And we use attentional hands to turn our regular card play into the download of a universal ship. That will be the USS Nebula. It requires gold and silver to fly, which our 2 seeded mission specialists conveniently have, so we can already make sure that we can get our geologist over to processor mining. Of course, for processor mining to work to its full potential, we need a second geologist. That's where assigned support personnel comes into play. Discard this, and let's grab perennial favorite Tate with a second geology there. Ship can be staffed, we fly over, we beam down our 2 geologists, and now we have this draw engine set up. The other guys can fly back to the outpost. We end our first turn by drawing a card. Alright, from turn 2 we can now process ore. As you can see, we have 3 holodeck doors. We are not going to use them all, so let's pitch one of them, put the bottom seed card into our point area, get a point for that, and draw 2 cards. And then we can play cards for our second turn. Let's play a personal with USS Enterprise in lore for free. That triggers a card draw from continuing a mission. Let's play a universal personal for free, and then we can also use a card play. Why not go for a Kivas Fajo, because we want to have access to more cards. Let's draw 3. Okay, there's James D. Kirk, that's nice to have. We also can play another holodeck door, and we use that to get Barish icon personnel like Admiral Picard or Commander Troy or Commander Data. We can also use it to get Prot, who has geology, so that's why a holodeck door in hand is as good as a geology personnel. But if you don't really need their skills for the moment, then your go-to personnel would be more holograms, Dr. Leah Brahms or Sir Isaac Newton, because these guys can give you more bonus points at, for example, Study Rare Phenomenon or Explore Dyson Sphere, or Leah Brahms at this mission, this one, or that one. And there are more instances of Dr. Leah Brahms in the deck, so you could actually use Leah Brahms, the original, plus her 2 holographic recreations that Creepy Geordie created to trigger 3 times engineer bonus points from AMS at Explore Dyson Sphere or Repair Mission. Okay, notice that the holograms can be used aboard your ships with holodeck. All the ships in the deck have a holodeck, and you are not going to beam them down to a planet, so you don't have to worry about holoprojectors or anything like that. Being holograms, they of course also cannot die, so you can send these holograms on mission attempts safely at your space missions. Leah Brahms and Hobson and the other Flesh and Blood mission specialists should be kept safe aboard the outpost until you have cleared all the dilemmas down to your Cytherians, because you don't want them to die. Alright, but that's what you do. You keep your mission specialists safe at the outpost, and everything else you throw at missions until you have cleared your opponent's dilemmas. Then at some point you're going to hit Cytherians. We don't have to travel all the way across the spaceline, but you cash in those points right next door. Hey, 15 points for doing nothing. And then, with the mission cleared out, you just send in all the mission specialists you have available, complete the mission for its printed value of 35 points, and then hopefully you already have 3 mission specialists that you can use. You have the seeded engineer, you have the seeded computer skill, and you will have drawn into at least one holodeck door to get another copy of Leah Brahms. So that's another 15 points here. Look at that, 66 points from one mission only. Give it a couple more turns to beat dilemmas at the next mission. You will probably have put another mission specialist into play now. So let's play it out at Explore Dyson Sphere. Again, keep the mission specialist safe at the outpost for the moment, or at a different mission, or wherever you want. Work through your opponent's dilemmas, hit another Cytherians for 15 points. The mission attempt ends. Now you know that there is only a Barclays waiting, so make sure you send a security, make sure you send a medical and a science. You might want to pick one of your mission specialists up. In this case, we haven't got a security in play, but you should have drawn into one. Let's play a Kibas Farjo, see what else we can find here. As you can see, we are having bad luck finding a security personnel. Let's draw a couple more. Finally, there's one. So security is one of the skills that are a bit light here, but by the time you have to complete your own, or you have to beat your own Barclays, you usually will have found one. All right, so that gives you 10 more points. And then we can grab all the mission specialists, or we will have all the mission specialists that we need. We score another printed 35 points, meaning we are at 126. This usually means we are about 5 or 6 turns into the game, maybe even more. At the beginning of our 6th turn, we will already have 5 bonus points from process or mining. So let's give us these 5 more points. So you can see that now only 2 mission specialists would be enough to bring us to 140. So Leah Brahms and Christopher Hobson for 10 AMS points, that's 140. And if we have guys like additional copies of Leah or Isaac Newton, we are looking at potentially 150, 160 points even from 2 missions, meaning you can afford to run through an Edo probe. You can afford to take a big hit from the higher the viewer. It's absolutely possible to get to 150 points from just 2 missions, and that's really where the beauty of this deck lies. Of course, playing this strategy is a bit cheesy, and that's why you can simply lose the game if your opponent is prepared. How can you simply lose the game? Well, blame Decipher. There is a card called Writ of Accountability, and this is an example of Decipher's heavy-handed approach of dealing with abusive strategies. You can simply outright lose the game if you've done that. It's a referee card, meaning if you see your opponent running Q's 10 Civil War over the regular Q's 10, chances are they have referee cards, and chances are they have Writ of Accountability. So if you see Q's 10 Civil War, maybe be content with just beating one of your own Cytherians and use the second copy of Cytherians and Barclays as dilemmas to seed under your opponent's mission. And then just play the deck as a regular 1 space, 1 planet solver, or even 1 planet, 2 space, or even 3 space to get to 140 points. But even if your opponent plays Q's 10 Civil War, and even if they have Writ of Accountability among their ref cards, chances are they might not actually know how to use it, or that you can use that card in that situation. Or they don't actually have the Ferengi FCA personnel that they need to trigger Writ of Accountability. So even if you see Q's 10 Civil War, there is a chance that you can pull off this gimmick without being punished. And that's really it. We're trying to get into that loophole where people think they don't need ref cards anymore and bust out an old abusive strategy. It's not as abusive as it used to be in the olden days, because you actually have to work through 2 missions worth of dilemmas, so you actually work for your money. It's just that you get a lot more bonus points than you would normally expect. All right, that's about it really. The deck really is mostly about TNG and Generations property logo cards. There are a couple of ships with holodeck. There are a couple of Kivas Varjo Collectors, there are lots of holodeck doors, but that's really it. Otherwise, the deck is very light on certain skills, so if you want to turn this into a really competitive deck, you are probably looking at adding more copies of certain skills. For example, medical classification is very light in this deck. Security, as you've seen, can be a bit problematic. Transporter skill is almost non-existent because you don't need it for a lot of dilemmas that you're going to face. The elephant in the room is the ghost of Cyrus Ramsey. You need 3 medical classification. We have that, but just barely. Or 3 transporter skill, which we cannot cough up with this deck. So you can certainly add a bit more redundancy. If you add more personal, also add a couple more Kivas Varjos and a couple of holodeck doors to make up and keep the ratios intact. Apart from that, you will find 2 interrupts in this deck that I think are worth a mention here. They are Team of Ambassadors and Change of Heart. They both have 2 functions. The first one lets you redo a random selection under certain circumstances, but really what you're looking at is the part after the OR. Team of Ambassadors nullifies misinterpreted history. Change of Heart nullifies rules of obedience. Those are 2 of the most popular dilemmas, and for very good reasons. They are played so much that many decks I've seen are now stocking at least 1 copy of Change of Heart and 1 of Team of Ambassadors, because they can get rid of these 2 dilemmas. And if you haven't used those dilemmas, they are just so good. Many decks actually use personal they wouldn't normally use just because they can get through these 2 dilemmas easily. But still, these dilemmas will result in at least 1 kill. And usually it's a kill that gives the player that seats them some choice. Right? And they work very nicely at setting up other dilemmas. So have a look at Change of Heart and Team of Ambassadors. They are absolutely worth a slot in a lot of decks. As far as the Q's tent is concerned, we have Reflection Therapy, which Suna can download for a specific skill that you don't have. For example, Treachery is a problem in such a Federation deck. There is Lower Decks that can be downloaded by Sam Lavelle, Federation Pad that can be downloaded by Lopez. So you have a couple of attribute boosts that can help you against certain dilemmas. And we also have Spock and his dad. They can be downloaded by the dilemma Diplomatic Intervention. That is a hard stop against almost every deck, because nobody is going to have 6 diplomacy on a planet just randomly. And against Federation decks that can't attack your ambassadors here, it will usually give you another turn. So that is a very nice dilemma that you can see it, for example, after a dead end. So when your opponent has already taken several turns, this is a very good dilemma to just give you a basically guaranteed stop in the late game. All right. You have space for 19 dilemmas. If you decide to play it safe and play the Cytherians and the Barclays under your opponent's missions, you're looking at 21 dilemmas. So that's a massive defensive setup that you can use. All right, that's really it. My equipment is not working properly. That's why this has been uploaded again. And unless I have fixed that, I'm not sure when the next episode is coming out. I hope it will be soon. I hope to have at least 1 more video before the World Championship in England in September. And until then, I hope you expand your power in the universe. If you have any specific wishes about cards to incorporate into decks or affiliations that you want to see covered in this show, please let me know in the comments. Hit like or subscribe. Until next time, bye bye.